I'm back, and so is Trey Hendrickson. Let's get started. Hi, hello, and welcome into the Ball Don't Lie podcast. My name is Austin Elmore. I might sound a little bit different. I might look a little bit different. We're still in the testing phase of my new, air quotes, studio, aka my desk at my new apartment. I've moved. I'm starting to get settled in. I'm almost all the way there, but still have a long way to go, and I had to get a podcast done and posted and ready to go after the news of the day, which is that the Bengals have agreed to a revised 2025 contract with star defensive end Trey Hendrickson. I'll admit, I'm a little bit surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that this happened as quickly as it did. I thought we'd still be talking about this on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday leading up to the season opener against the Cleveland Browns in week number 1. But 13 days away from that opener, Trey Hendrickson has a deal. Now, it's not an extension. It's a revised 2025 contract. Trey was slated to make a base salary of $16 million this year. That has been added to make it an even $30 million, according to multiple reports. So, Trey gets to that $30 million a year threshold that we've all been asking for, and he is able to remain an unrestricted free agent in 2026. Now, this is kind of what both sides wanted. We've talked a lot about how the Bengals don't feel comfortable guaranteeing money past this season and into future years. Well, with this deal, they don't have to, and with Trey, it allows him to hit the free agent market and maybe double dip and get that deal he's been looking for next year. It also creates an emergency button for the Bengals to press if they need to. Let's talk about it. So, because Trey is an unrestricted free agent next year, the Bengals do have the ability to put the franchise tag on him. Now, it was reported and questioned when these reports came out, is there a no tag clause that would prevent the Bengals from having any further control over Trey Hendrickson? Multiple reports have come out that say there isn't a no tag clause. So, the Bengals do have that option. So what does that mean? We've talked about it with T. Higgins in the past. We've talked about it with others. Basically, the Bengals can franchise tag Trey Hendrickson, and that means that he is under contract for a guaranteed deal with the Bengals next season at a certain number. Now, it's based off of whichever is greater, either 120% of your previous year's salary or the average of the top 5 highest paid players at that position. So think about it this way. TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, those guys have all been paid. Micah Parsons is probably going to be paid before next year as well. So you would take the average yearly salary of the top 5 highest paid players at that position, which would be those 3 guys I just mentioned, or those 4 guys I just mentioned, and then the next guy, and equal out that average, and that would be what the salary number that Hendrickson would play on next year. Or if 120% of his 2025 salary is greater, he would play on that. I think it would equal out to be about $39 million that the Bengals could choose to be guaranteed money to him next year, and he would be under contract. I don't think that's the plan, though. If you look at it that way, the contract basically works out to this year for $30 million, next year if they use the franchise tag for $39 million, altogether 2 years, $70-ish million guaranteed money. That's basically what it comes down to if they use the franchise tag. But instead, they have this option to let Trey Hendrickson go. If he goes and if he walks in free agency, which the Bengals have done in the past with other great players, sometimes they've been right, sometimes they've been wrong, and he signs a big contract, well then Trey Hendrickson would get and net the Bengals a 3rd round compensatory pick in next year's draft. So they would get something at the very least out of Trey Hendrickson walking away in free agency. The biggest question here is, why did it take so long to get to this point? Why did, after all these months, Trey starts looking for a trade and the Bengals start taking calls and all this other stuff happening? Why did it take this long to get to this point? Well, I think the Bengals didn't budge, and they said, we are not going to guarantee you money after this season. That is a non-negotiable. And Trey is like, well, I have earned a raise. And the Bengals are like, yes, you have earned a raise. We'll give you a raise, but we're not going to guarantee you all this money in future years. And so the other part of this too is the Bengals look around at the other defensive ends that they have and they're like, okay, well, if they don't develop this year, if Shamar Stewart isn't who we think he is, if Miles Murphy doesn't take a step forward, if Joseph Osai is not somebody we want to invest in long term, we can press this button, pull this nuclear lever basically, and keep Trey Hendrickson here again next year. Like, that's a possibility. And it wouldn't be ridiculous for the Bengals from a salary cap standpoint to be able to do that if they feel comfortable doing that with Trey. I don't think that's going to happen, but you have to make space for that possibility. The unfortunate part is that it took this long to get to this point, and Trey has missed all of training camp. Now, the good news is they got it done today, which is August 25th, which means he has 13 days to get himself ready to go against Cleveland. Is he going to play 100% of the snaps against Cleveland? No, probably not. But Trey Hendrickson being on the field is better than Trey Hendrickson not being on the field. And that ultimately is the most important thing here, because if you saw the Bengals defense, and I saw the Bengals defense and everything we saw over the last month, you would know the Bengals need Trey Hendrickson. And here's what's interesting to kind of look at the defense as a whole here. The Bengals have already made some cuts. All the cuts have to be made by Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Then the waiver claims are Wednesday at noon. Practice squads finalized Wednesday at 4 o'clock. By Thursday, most people have their final rosters done. We'll do another update if we can about that. But this defense has not performed well. The first team reps, the first team starters, they have not performed well over the course of training camp in games. But in practice, they've been formidable. They've been decent. They've been respectable. And the people that cover this team every day and the coaches all agree that the Bengals defense looks better against the Bengals offense than it does against anyone else. And the Bengals coaches have made plenty of excuses for this. They've said, listen, we're not showing anything. We're not asking our guys to do a lot. We're just looking for certain things and certain reps. And so basically saying, we don't believe that the preseason and those reps are all that important for our defense. But on the other side of the ball, all they talk about is how important those reps are for the Bengals offense and for Joe Burrow. That, to me, is a bit of an oxymoron. It's talking out of both sides of your mouth, and it doesn't quite add up. But the Bengals know, after what they saw throughout training camp, that they need Trey Hendrickson, and it's not worth waiting any longer. Let's give the guy the raise he deserves, and we'll figure out the rest later. In the meantime, let's try to turn this defense into something. I can understand the frustration of Bengals fans. If you look around and say, why can't you get Trey Hendrickson signed to a long-term deal? And I've talked a lot about my feelings about that. But the biggest news here is that the Bengals are a better football team right now than they were yesterday because Trey Hendrickson is going to play. He's going to be their best defensive player, and he's going to be on the field against Cleveland. That offense is a train wreck right now with the Cleveland Browns, but the Bengals defense might be an even bigger train wreck. And him alone being on the field and against that offensive line is going to create issues that Cleveland has to game plan around. That allows opportunities for B.J. Hill or Chris Jenkins, who all indications are have had the most impressive training camp of any defensive player, or even Shamar Stewart, who continues to flash, to win one-on-ones, be game wreckers, and have an impact. That's ultimately what it comes down to. How do other players play off of Trey Hendrickson while he's on the field, and how many one-on-ones can Trey win that can just give the Bengals offense 1, 2, maybe even 3 more possessions each and every game that they play? If they're able to do that, it's an entirely different outlook on this season. Now, here's the thing. I don't have a lot of faith in the defense from what I've seen. I don't know that right now this team can go and win 10, 12 games and win the AFC North and go to the playoffs. I think there's a lot of growing up that has to be done for the defense. There's a lot that they still have to figure out, which goes to show why maybe the Bengals have been saying what they've been saying about the reps that the defense doesn't really pay that much attention to in games in training camp, and the reps that the offense does and the importance of those reps. Because they know while the defense takes the first month or 2 months, whatever it might be, to get their feet under them and figure it out and learn life with Al Golden as the defensive coordinator, the offense is going to be relied upon to carry them and win games. And hopefully by November, both of these sides have figured it out and have learned who they are and are a consistent group that can get stops, that can score points, and that can be competitive in every football game that they play. Because Lord knows at the end of November, at Baltimore on Thanksgiving night, at Buffalo, and right back in Cincinnati against Baltimore again, that is as tough a 3-game stretch as there is at any point in the National Football League. And this defense and this offense are going to have to be ready by November. In the meantime, can they start fast? Can they win some games they're not supposed to win? Can they beat teams like Cleveland? Can they beat teams like Detroit? Can they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home on a Thursday night? My confidence in the 2025 Bengals right now is at an all-time low, but I feel better about them than I did prior to the Trey Hendrickson deal. So I guess I should say it's not at an all-time low if I feel better right now. You could hear myself coming up with the hypocrisy there. I should say this. Prior to today, it was at an all-time low, my confidence in the 2025 Bengals. Now, with Hendrickson signed, it's still not very high, but it is higher than it was. That, to me, is that the Bengals are going in the right direction. But they cannot rely on being healthy. They cannot rely on hope. And they should not rely on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase being superheroes every single week to get them to win games. In the NFL, you have to win games in a variety of ways. You have to be able to run the football. You have to be able to play defense. You have to be able to make 6 field goals in a game sometimes. Or you have to be able to down punts inside the 5. Or you have to be able to drain clock in a 4-minute offense. Or you have to score 52 points. Or you have to shut a team out. Those are the different ways you have to be able to win in the NFL. The Bengals aren't there yet, but they are going in the right direction as long as Trey Hendrickson is on the field. Hopefully, him being there makes everybody else around him better, and this team is actually competitive. So a short, sweet, immediate reaction, kind of testing out the new studio. My apologies if you can hear the fan above me. I'm struggling to keep this place cool, so I got to have the fans on. And if you know me, if it's warm, I'm miserable. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out with the audio. My apologies if I've screwed this whole thing up. But short and sweet episode. We'll try to double dip going into Thursday once we have a little bit of a better idea what the rosters look like for the Bengals as they get set for, at that point, 10 days from now, taking on the Cleveland Browns in the season opener. If you liked what you heard, you can follow me anywhere on Twitter. Anywhere on social media is what I meant to say, including on Twitter at Auty Elmore, AUTYELMORE. I also co-host Cincy 360 on ESPN 1530 with UC Hall of Famer Tony Pike. You can listen weekdays from noon to 3 anywhere, anytime with the iHeartRadio app. This is a good time to end the podcast because I'm struggling to speak. So that's normally a good time to end it. I hope this worked. We'll hopefully see you again later this week with a full breakdown of the Bengals 2025 roster going into week number 1. As always, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Have fun, be safe, go Bucks.